Wow. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Bold Carnivore's first ever live stream. We are here today with Dustin from Keto Simple. Keeping it simple. Hi, Dustin. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
Wow. This is fabulous. And my I comment that beard, my lord, it is just wonderful. I
I appreciate it. Thank you.
cannot keep up.
All I had to do was not shave.
That's awesome. So we got one friend watching. Hello, friend who is watching. That's me,
I
I
think that's
guess.
me,
Live viewer.
maybe.
Wow.
I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, cool.
That way I can
That's
that way
cool
I
too,
can
though.
see all the chats and everything.
I'm still learning these things. I don't even know where the sidebar is. Everyone's saying, "What's in the sidebar?" I don't know where the sidebar is. I'm looking. Okay. Comments. I found it. Well, awesome. So I know this is recording to YouTube, so I had no chance to edit this stuff out. Listen, could you tell our audience about yourself? Because I don't know anything about you, Dustin. Let's say
All right.
howdy and
So
what do you do?
all right. So I am a multitude of things here. So I'm a YouTuber, stay-at-home grandpa, DoorDash. I help the wife take care of things around the house. We have like a side hustle, like reselling business, and she's an RN. So we've kind of got our hands on a lot of different things. She and I decided to go keto at the same time to support me in 2016. Um, I had gone to see my general practitioner to start the process of getting an umbilical hernia repaired that I'd had for far too long, like almost a decade. I had this thing, right? Well, like 6 years. So 6 years I had an umbilical hernia, and it was sticking out about the size of my fist. And her being a nurse, she's like, "You need to get that fixed. You need to get that fixed." So finally went in and started getting that fixed, and also the process of getting a sleep apnea machine, um, a CPAP. And in the process of all these things, stepped on the scale, I was over 421 pounds.
Wow.
So that'll punch you in the gut, right?
Yeah.
And I will say it like this because anybody who gets that big knows they're getting that big, right? I knew I was getting that big. I was buying the pants. I had started buying 5XL t-shirts. You know, but it's so hard to actually see what's really going on. Like because you're buying the bigger clothes. Things are getting clothes are getting tighter and tighter, so you're buying bigger and bigger. So it's not a secret, but it's almost like your brain hides it from itself. So you need some kind of like wake up call. And it comes in all kinds of different ways. People will have those in all kinds of ways and fashions. So like for me, it was stepping on the scale. And before that, I kind of was resigned that I was going to kind of end up like my mom. And she had multiple strokes and heart attacks and passed in 2013. So I figured up to that point, I figured, that's just my fate. I'm going to get bigger and bigger until I have a heart attack and die. There's no hope for me. I tried all kinds of diets in the past, went to the gym and did all these things, and nothing ever quite seemed to stick. So the wife and I were talking, and she says, I don't want to do weight loss surgery for you because the unit that she was on, she would see a lot of the people coming back, having it redone, having all kinds of stuff done, right? So, complications, things not taking, things having to be redone. So she saw this on her floor all the time. So she says, let's try this low carb thing because keto itself wasn't in our vernacular yet. So let's try low carb and we'll see what happens. So it was in the deep dive of going low carb. And even at that time, we had no idea what we were doing. We were doing like 150 total carbs a day. That was low carb to us. And as we were deep diving and searching for recipes. We kept coming across the keto word, right? But most of the recipes were from sites at the time from like kids with epilepsy, so like an epileptic resource for parents, so recipes and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, and I was looking into that, and I was like, so that's in the kind of the back of my mind. And we went to see my GP for something, and he was like, if you want to lose weight, you just got to be in ketosis. But he didn't elaborate on what that was. I don't think he could necessarily. He was older. He's already retired by now. He's like my grandma's GP too. So I went back and I was like, okay, there's ketosis. What's this all about? I've seen the word keto. I imagine they're linked together. I figured. So I did a deep dive, started getting into podcasts and stuff, and I found, two keto dudes. So you had one American guy and one Australian guy. You had Carl and Richard, and I binged every episode they have as fast as I could. And I got caught up. We started keto around September of that year, and we've not looked back.
So keto was a new word for you at that particular time, or even ketosis.
Mm-hmm.
How about the hernia? Exactly what happened? Why did you get the hernia, and how? I mean, like, was it just from being overweight in itself, or you lift too heavy? But
I think it came from when I was going to the gym all the time in like 2010. I think because basically what it was like the wall was kind of popping through a little bit. So it wasn't my stomach, it wasn't intestines or anything like that. It was just kind of like, it was like some of the stomach wall had popped through the lining and was kind of coming out through my belly button. So I didn't have a belly button anymore. It was just like this bulge, like the size of my fist. So when I had the surgery, in August of 2016, and they fixed that up, gave me a new belly button. So it's pretty. Yeah. So I mean that's my best guess, because it was just kind of there, but it was small, and it started small. It started where I could kind of push it back in, and I didn't think anything of it because who does? I mean, maybe I'm a weirdo in that, like, but who would think about like just push it back in, it's fine. And then it got to the point where it wouldn't go back in anymore. And there's a funny story when we were sitting with the doctor on the consultation. So we had met with a couple of different people, and Chandra didn't want me to use one of the surgeons we talked to because he wanted me to go into a surgery center. And with my comorbidities, being vastly overweight, sleep apnea, obviously, even though kind of undiagnosed diabetic, I mean, you don't get to be over 400 pounds and not be some flavor of diabetic, right? All those things plus all those comorbidities, working against me. So she did not want me to go to a surgery center. So she had me meet with a doctor that was on that she dealt with at work. So we sat down with him, and he went on this long, 10, 15-minute diatribe of most people who come in here, we don't operate on, we don't think that they need the surgery, this, that, and the other. And I was just like, do you want to see it? And he kept going and going. I'm like, do you want to look at it? And finally he goes, okay, all right, fine. Let's look at it. So I, untucked my shirt, pulled my shirt up, showed it to him. He looked back to his assistant, and they made a date for 2 weeks from that moment right there. So he was like, well, okay, we're going to get you in August, in 2 weeks from today, we'll get you in here, So.
Nurse, what do you think? Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah. I mean, I know it wasn't good. I mean, I'd lived with it for a long time, and you could see it through my shirt. You know what I mean? I was a big guy, and you could see it through my shirt, and people would make comments on it and stuff. So, I mean, I knew it wasn't good.
I actually have seen a person with a worse condition than that. At one time, he worked in a train yard, and you could actually see that one of the coils of his intestines pushed out through the wall. And I'm like, is that what it's like to work here? Because I don't think I want to play anymore. Oh man.
I was lucky that it wasn't intestines. It wasn't my stomach. It wasn't anything like that. So it wasn't necessarily life threatening, but like the skin was getting so thin on like where it was coming through. It was just getting so thin that I don't know what would have happened. Like if it would have gotten scraped or something, it would have been pretty bad,
So how do they repair that? They go in and put a mesh or
Yeah. Yeah, they went in laparoscopically and they blew it up like a balloon. All while I'm out, obviously. And so they blew it up like a balloon, put the stuff in, tacked it down, and then put it all back together, rebuilt me a new belly button, and sent me on my way. It was one of the most painful things in the world because my wife, being a nurse, we were sitting at the bedside. I'm laying in bed, right after the surgery, and like a couple hours goes by after like my anesthesia is kind of pretty much worn off, and I'm kind of alert and awake. She goes, "Okay, it's time to get up and walk." I'm like, "What?" So like just that initial, like me getting up from a laying down position, getting my feet on the floor was probably one of the worst things I've ever felt. And I was on a lot of drugs. I was on a lot of medication in the hospital. All the painkillers, and I'm like really, working my way up. You can't use your abdominal muscles, so I'm using my back and my shoulders and my arms, and I'm a big guy. I'm still over 400 pounds at this point. And I finally get myself up, and it literally felt like, and maybe this is TMI, but it literally felt like my abdominal wall was going to rip open and everything inside of me was going to be on the floor. That's what it felt like. And she's just looking at me like, "Come on, butthead, get up. You can do this." You know what I mean? Because that's what she did. That's how she is with her patients. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get up, you got to move, you got to move, you got to move. Because if you don't get up with that kind of surgery and you don't move, bad things happen. So you got to get up and move. So I would, when I finally got home, like a day and a half later, it started walking from, like from the front door to the mailbox. And then it was like a few more feet. And then it was like walk to the end of the block. And then it was walk around the block. And, it was every day just walking and walking. It started off me walking like Ozzy Osbourne, if you know who he is. And just kind of like, Sharon, that was me, right? And then finally got to where I was kind of like power walking around. I was like, oh, and it was midsummer, so it was hot. Sweating, fat.
What do you weigh now?
I'm around, I haven't weighed myself in a while, but post-COVID, well, right now I'm about like 320-ish. But my lowest weight pre-pandemic was about 273.
What's your goal?
As far as weight, I don't necessarily have a goal number in mind. I have like kind of like clothing size. I'd like to get down to like a 36 pant, 34 pant with a large shirt maybe. I don't know. I just want to look not big when I put clothes on. I don't have a weight because weight is kind of one of those things like if you get too concerned with the weight, I think it's a big detractor and can actually halt your progress because like you get on the scale and you gain 2 pounds this week, but you did everything right. So you should have lost those 2 pounds this week, but you didn't. So you know what? Screw this. I'm going to do what I want. So I try not to focus on the weight. I try to kind of spot check here and there. And I mean, you can kind of get an idea of how your clothes are fitting and such. So I was very vigilant in the beginning with the weight. Every week I would go to visit the wife at work, use the big scales that they have there because they were very accurate. They would pop up in kilos, we'd do the math and break it down to pounds, and then I would make my post on Facebook long before I had a channel, long before I was doing anything like, what we do now. But that was a weekly thing. I would go in, fasted on a Sunday because she worked a lot of weekends. Now she works every weekend, but yeah.
Well, speaking of fasting, do you do a lot of fasting? Or is that just on weighing days?
I have a lot of experience with fasting. I have gone through cycles where I've been on cycles where I will intermittent fast 20 hours a day, 23 hours a day. I've done extended fasts all the way up to 21 days. That's actually kind of the first set of content that I released on the channel was the beginning of 2021. I did a 21-day fast to start the channel. So I didn't do every single day, but I did almost every single day, at least a brief upload of what was going on with me, all that stuff. We were also putting in flooring at the time, so there was a lot going on. But yeah, so fasting, I really do like fasting, and I try to do as close to OMAD as possible. But I like to have my coffee in the morning with cream, so that breaks my fast, obviously. And then I don't eat again until mid-afternoon, and then I have like one meal. Sometimes it may be a little later in the night, depending. I started door dashing last week, so I've been going out just after having my coffee. I'll go out and I'll be fasted without any food or whatever, and just go and go and go until kind of like things drop off. I mean, it's not like a full day of work. I mean, usually for me, it's like 3.5 hours, but then things taper off to where it's diminishing return. So I just go home. But in a perfect world, I would fast 20 hours a day, 22 hours a day. I usually like giving myself a decent sized window, like a 2 to 3 hour window, because if you try to eat enough calories to sustain someone like me in one sitting, it is rather difficult. So at least breaking it in half over a couple of hours makes it a lot more palatable, if you will.
What's your favorite food?
Short answer, probably hamburger. I like the ease. Walmart frozen burger patties because it's easy. I don't have to think about it. I like everything else. I like steak and eggs and bacon and sausage and pizza. I like everything that everybody likes.
Nice. So, if we have any questions for Dustin or myself, just go ahead and put that up in the chat window there, or the comments window there, and we'll try to get some answers going again.
I want to say hi to Cindy. She's amazing.
Hit it up. Hi, Cindy.
She may be gone. She has a live stream that she does on Friday nights as well. So.
Oh yeah. And she did say she would stay as long as she could. Former fat girl in the house. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Some new people that I'm not familiar with in here. I'm not. I mean, and then again, maybe I do know who they are. I don't know. Sometimes it becomes like my memory will fail me, so I don't know if I'm familiar with former fat girl or Jennifer P.
Nicole. Yeah, she's on a lot of the streams with Dave Mack and several other friends. Yeah. So that hernia you were talking about, excuse me. Let's see, who was it? Dante from Fregno Freedom. He had a hernia similar to that, and it messed him up pretty bad. That's one of the reasons that he went and tried the keto stuff, and then now he's on the lion diet. And dude is jacked. I mean, just the way he eats and stuff is wow. I'd like to be able to go that route. I don't know.
Yeah, I was down for about 2-ish weeks or so. I had to wear like what they call a binder, just to kind of like hold pressure and such. And I wore that for a couple of weeks and had to sleep on my back for a long time, which was kind of difficult for me. But outside of that, I mean, I'm so much better now.
Oh, shout out to the Browns. Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
One question I have for you. How is, and I'm sure that you're probably more familiar with what keto looks like in the States. How does keto look in Jakarta?
Oh, well, I'm actually in Surabaya, but I'm on Jakarta time. It's the same time slot. But here there's not really a lot of options for that. I mean, because most people, like I said, they eat rice and seasonal fruits and all kinds of stuff like that. It is a good question. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Miss Brown says it's a good question. It is. It's totally a good question. So you have to be in the gym scene around here to get any kind of information about that kind of stuff, or you just have to look for it yourself because it's not like front and center.
Well, I mean, I imagine that obviously meat is going to be something you have access to, vegetables you have access to. Now, depending on what kind of meat and what kind of vegetables, it's obviously probably a little different than what we have access to. So, I mean, that's something that's curious to me. So, I mean, like here we have beef, pork, chicken, the main three, maybe a little turkey, and
We
then
don't have turkey here.
we don't have turkey is one of those like country, I guess, like country dependent. There's a lot of countries that don't do beef, and there's countries that don't do pork, and But I imagine that chicken and eggs are kind of prevalent around the world, whether or not I don't know. So, what is
No,
your
we do
diet
have
consist
chicken.
of?
Oh, good question. I eat a lot of chicken. I eat beef. I eat goat. Yeah, there are lots of things that I can and do eat. I eat liver. I mean, but then here you can get all kinds of stuff, parts that you wouldn't usually eat in the States. You can get the brain, the liver, the lungs, intestine if that's your thing. It's not my thing, but some people like it. So, yeah.
Yeah, here, I mean, as far as like the offal or the organs, if you will, we've got a result of things like we have, liver is kind of it. I mean, even
Yeah.
like cow tongue used to be a very
I
cheap.
can go to the store and get a whole tongue.
We can to a certain degree in certain places, and it used to be really cheap. Now it's about the same price as sirloin. So $8-9 a pound, depending.
I'm gonna get this question real quick. Yeah. So the Browns asked, how did I start and how did I become a carnivore? Okay, so that's a good question. I started because I found several people online, like especially YouTube, that were talking about low carb and stuff, and so I was like, no, I can give that a try because I'm blowing up. I'm getting kind of heavy over here. I don't know quite what to do with it, so I'll try it. But what do I try? So I learned about Dr. Berry and several people within the carnivore space, and I thought, I'll give that a shot. So I did, but I didn't do a great job of it, and I kept it really dirty. And then whenever there was a feast or a festival or a happy birthday, I would just join in because that's what's expected, you know. And so I did, and I kept adding back in things and adding back in things, and I wasn't getting anywhere. As I was going, I kept getting worse. Actually, I mean, I had dropped quite a lot of my size. My weight had dropped down quite a lot, but it wasn't effective, and I had started to lose muscle mass because even though I was cutting out a lot during, like, say, weekdays, and I was only eating maybe once a day, I wasn't eating enough to sustain muscle mass, and I didn't even know that. And so I started having a lot more problems. My left shoulder went out, my left elbow was going bad, and then my wrist followed that, and the fingers of my left hand started to go numb. I could barely feel anything through them. And then my ankles and knees started to lock up in such a way that going up and downstairs was just excruciating. And after a while of that, I said, I'm doing it wrong. I've got to turn this around somewhere. So I started looking more into the carnivore space again, and I realized I'm doing it the wrong way around. I've got too much of this, that, and the other thing still with me. So what do I do with it? I got to stop it. So I put the brakes on everything except meat and eggs, and that's how things have gone for me. My knee is better now, especially my right. It was grinding. The left one was getting to be immobile, but my right knee was a serious problem. My ankles got mobility again, and I have full strength in my left now. So it's fantastic. And all of that from just eating meat. I don't know why we don't know these things. Yes, thank you, Browns. Yeah. So not quite as harrowing as, well, my guts were falling out, but it was still bad.
So let's see. Shauna's in the house. Air frying auntie is Shauna.
Hi, Shauna. Nice to see it. Indonesian carnivore. Yes, that's quite right.
See, D says, I recall
Hello,
the
airport.
time when I only knew the word keto associated with the word ketoacidosis, and it was not a good word. A lot of doctors still conflate, or is it conflate the two? My words might be off, yeah, but where they hear, oh, you're doing a ketogenic diet, they get ketogenic and ketoacidosis, and they lock them together. Where, just for anybody who may not be aware, so a ketogenic diet puts the body in a state of ketosis, where you are reading anything between zero point 0.1 and up millimolars per deciliter with ketones. Now, you can still be in ketosis and not really read anything, just depends on your body, but that's just a kind of a way to know without a shadow of a doubt that you're in ketosis, right? Now, where ketoacidosis comes into play often is with persons who are type 1 diabetic. It's not the only way, but it's mostly associated with those who are type 1 diabetic, where they have high blood sugar, say 900 or higher, and ketone levels of 13, 15, and up per millimolar or millimolar per deciliter. So, which is very dangerous. I actually have a friend who would often go to the hospital. She is type 1 diabetic and going through kidney failure, and would often end up in the hospital with ketoacidosis, blood sugars in the 900s. And I was, and I've never been able to really talk to her or anything about this, because she basically goes solely on what the doctors tell her, even though the doctors can't seem to get her blood sugars in order. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But you just kind of feel helpless sometimes. You see people and you know what could probably help them, but they can't see that, and they're not ready for that. And I mean, it is painful when you care about someone and you see that and you see them going through that, but you can't just say, hey, listen, this is what you have to do. Because I know when I was in my 400 pounds, people would be like, well, you're fat, you should eat that ice cream. I wasn't going to listen. I was going to do what I wanted to do. I was going to do what I thought was best for me, right? So anyway, sorry for the diatribe, but yeah. Just a brief rundown of the differences in ketosis versus ketoacidosis. Hungry Heath is in the house.
Hungry Heath. That is an interesting name. All right.
Hungry Heath is awesome. So he and his wife Shelly, they will do a live stream every Friday night at 7:30, where they sit down and cook a whole meal, eat it, and then chat with people for about 4 hours.
Nice. Okay, what do we get here? Ta-da. Went to my doctor today. Told her not to say a word, but I was thinking about going carnivore. She just looked at me and said nothing. Nice, Jennifer. But
yeah,
the ketosis, you see ketone acidosis, usually in type 1 diabetics. Yeah,
right.
It's not normal for regular everyday folks to have this as an issue, right? So when you say ketosis, and the doctor goes, "You're gonna die," what do they know about that? That's only in very specific circumstances, isn't it?
Well, the sad thing is they don't know much. So the average doctor goes through like a half a semester of nutrition within their 8+ years of medical school, right? And then their residency, and then there's a lot of doctors don't have much time to keep up with literature or with changes. That's why you still have doctors pushing and shoving the high cholesterol stuff, even though there's a lot of information out there that to the contrary, and they don't really, like, the behind the scenes, they're not really pushing it anymore. They've kind of slowly started to remove it out of the literature, but doctors haven't got there yet. So
yeah, continuing education is fun, right? I've seen that. My mom's a nurse, and so she still has. I mean, she wants to keep her license up. She has to go through continuing education. You'd expect this kind of stuff to get pushed through the continuing education.
This depends on what kind of nurse you are. So individualized nurses. So the wife, she's an ICU nurse, so she goes through continuing education but it's education that pertains to ICU. So how to use new machines, how to new methods, new drugs, that kind of stuff that pertains to the nurses on her unit. But she's not getting she's not getting nutrition information. She's not, because basically when it comes to most things, she does what the doctor orders, right? So the doctor puts the orders in, and something that most people are unfamiliar when they about nurses is the fact that nurses are the last line of defense for the patient. So the doctor will see the patient for 5 minutes tops, right? They'll put an order in. The order goes through. If it's an order for a medication, it'll go through pharmacy. So pharmacy is a stopgap. Then it goes to the nurse. And the nurse has to look at the chart, look at the patient, assesses the patient, and then has to make the determination of whether they're going to administer that or reach out to the doctor and say, if we administer this, this is going to be the outcome, and it's an undesired outcome. So I think nurses go through more continued education than doctors do, but none of them get any kind of nutrition. Unless you're a nutritionist, but I don't even know how much continued education nutritionists go through.
Yeah, I couldn't even speak on the nutritionist end of that. I have no idea what they might be required for. Neurologist is hesitant about keto, but now he is like, well, it's obviously working, so keep it up. Yeah. With neurology, though, these guys have to know a little bit more about the nutrition anyway, right? Because some of their patients, they only get better through nutrition, right?
It really just depends. It depends on the individual doctor. It depends on the case. It depends on so much. So I think a lot of it is, you would think any doctor you go to, it should be a conversation like this, right? X is wrong with me. Okay, doc, what do you recommend? Well, doctor would say, well, what's your diet like? What's your exercise routine? How much sleep are you getting? Diet, exercise, sleep. How much stress are you under? Those are like four main. I'm sure I'm missing a multitude of things, and I'm simplifying it down a lot. But sleep, food, stress, exercise, those things should be what you would discuss with a doctor instead of going, oh, well, here's Y prescription. Take this and come back, and and here's the potential side effects. Here's what we're looking for. Let us know if you don't feel better. But they never talk about nutrition, sleep. They don't talk about exercise. They don't talk about all these things where, as the first course of action. And then I've posted about this on my personal Facebook about why aren't these the things that we go to first? And I get so much pushback from just regular people. They don't want it, which is so weird to me. And I imagine I was probably the same way umpteen years ago. I was living my best life, eating whatever I wanted. And then I was on heartburn medication. I was on, taking heartburn medicine. I was taking a lethal dose of allergy medicine. It was ridiculous. I should have died how much allergy medicine I was taking, Yeah, and like you said, they're trying to push the plant-based. Eat less meat. One of the last things that I had a conversation with a GP was I had been seeing the same GP for about 2 years, and then it was so in the time frame, it was still about 3 visits. So I saw them kind of when I first started the job, and the job that I had was in a big office building downtown. And so my GP was in the basement of the building. So that's where the doctor's office was. So I would just clock out, take the elevator down, go downstairs, see the GP. They'd, pull your blood there, do everything there right on site. So I was having a conversation with the GP, and my biomarkers were getting better and better every year. And she would still say, well, how much red meat are you eating? I'm like, every day. Well, maybe you want to limit that some. And I'm like, you see, my biomarkers are getting better year over year. My A1C is getting better. My fasting glucose is better. And you're still going to recommend that, even my cholesterol was better. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and you still want to have me eat less red meat? How does that make any sense at all? But I mean, they have. Okay, so they basically have to say those things, even if it doesn't make sense. Most of them are going to, because they don't want to lose their license. There's things nurses can't do and can't say. Nurses can't tell you about nutrition. They can't say and recommend things because they can lose their license. Their license is their livelihood. Because if they deviate from what a board of doctors or a board of nurses has deemed appropriate for them to discuss, they can lose their license and therefore aren't able to feed their kids, pay their mortgage. So, I mean, it's kind of, we put a lot of blame on the doctors. We don't put as much blame on the establishment that sets the guidelines and restricts the doctors and the ones who teach the doctors.
You see the face, that's fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're the face of it, right? So they're who we see, they're who we talk to, but they're tied so tight that they have no real choice. And I mean, there is responsibility to the doctors. Doctors are going to start to see this. And I was at Low Carb for Better Health last month in August. And it was Dr. Barry was there and Dr. Eric Westman was there. And they were like, how many doctors were in the room? How many nurses? How many medical professionals are in the room? And there was like 20, 30 people's hands up. It was about 10% of the total audience, give or take. And they said when they first started doing these kind of conferences, it'd be maybe one. Maybe. So we're doing the right thing. We're saying the right stuff. We're doing these things. What we're doing, what we're saying isn't falling on deaf ears, but it is a slow, arduous process. So we're promoting this. We're living the lifestyle. We're showing what's possible being, an N equals one, right? So it's just, I'm doing what's best for me. You're doing what's best for you. And I think if we can continue to make the community strong, and that means keto, ketovore, carnivore, lion, all these things, and not letting dogmatic things kind of totally divide everybody, I think we'll be so much further ahead. So where, somebody keto, like dirty keto is going to work just fine for a group of people. Strict keto is going to work for a group of people. You're going to get into like a dirty, lazy carnivore was going to work for people where they're just going to McDonald's and getting, the McCheese with no bun. And then you're going to have the super strict carnivore where they're only eating grass-fed, grass-finished, and they're spending $400 a week on steak. And then you're going to have the ketovore, you're going to have the lion diet where they're just eating all beef, all salt, and that's water, and that's it, no coffee. That's going to work for certain people. I think in order to turn this all around, I think what we need to do is continue to do what we're doing, work together, and make sure that everybody is looking out for each other. I don't think there's any one way of what we're doing that's going to work for 100% of the people. Like if somebody comes in and says, well, keto isn't working for me, is it, and I know that people want to say like saying it's dirty keto is gatekeeping and things, but people start from somewhere. Someone comes in and they say, I'm doing keto and I have, these Hershey sugar-free chocolates every once in a while. And, well, I mean, I stay away from those because this is what happens to me. And that's, I think, the best way to start communicating with people. It's like, when someone says, well, like, that gives me disaster pants and I can't hang out with that, right? Like, like what works for me is not going to work for you. But if you're seeing your results and you're thriving, amazing. Right. I mean, there's people out there that maybe vegan is the way that they're going to get healthy. Is it likely? Is it difficult? Yeah. But I mean, some people, they don't like the taste of meat. I know a lot of people who I've had friends since high school who've never really eaten meat. They just don't want to. So you have to, then you kind of work with them and say, okay, if you're really not going to eat meat, what is that going to look like? And I think that's where we all need to be, instead of like judging and shaming. And I know we do an amazing job in this community. I mean, as far as the people that I try to surround myself with, I try to avoid the negativity, the I'm better than you because I do X, Y, or Z. And I mean, you know, kind of lost my train of thought there.
I'm totally with it.
Just,
I get you.
yeah.
And I think that you're right with that. You can't have a gated community and then also have a functional community for very long. Just not in this case. When you're talking about living at the end of the cul-de-sac, that's fine because you want to keep out the riffraff. Great, but you're talking about something as complex as the human diet. I just don't see how that's going to work out very well. But like air frying auntie here, I like to ask people how they feel after they eat something and tell them I'm always reading labels to know what I'm putting in my body. And that is exactly what we ought to do. Those labels can be sneaky in and of themselves, though.
And it's not even once and done. You got to continue to check labels on even things you buy on a regular basis. Like we were talking a couple of weeks ago. There is a brand of pasta sauce or tomato sauce in the States called Rayo's, and it's a higher price. You can get it at like Costco, or at the regular grocery store is like a 16-ounce jar. It's like $9. So it's a lot of money, but it's a very clean and it's very low carb. It's like 2 to 3 total carbs per serving. So it's like a quarter cup, half cup. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they've been acquired by a bigger company. So now they're not owned. Rayo's isn't owned by Rayo's. Rayo's is now owned by, and I can't, whether it was Campbell's or Kraft or whatever major company that bought them. Now the thing is you've got to maintain your vigilance and keep looking at the back of the label and the ingredients, because anytime a smaller company, like as an example of like Primal Kitchen was very clean, and they got bought by Kraft maybe, and then their ingredients started to shift and change. So
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I mean, you
That
just
really is
have
a
to
big deal.
yeah. There was a Primal Kitchen buffalo sauce that I liked, and it had cashew butter in it, and it was like pretty low carb, and it didn't have any bad oils in it. And then they changed it now that it's got like starches and stuff that it didn't have before, and they kind of removed the cashew butter. So it's just like they've just kind of changed the formulation and added the starches in. So I mean, the carb count really didn't change, but the ingredients did. So I mean, then you have to look at that and go, okay, is this still going to be acceptable to me, or am I going to have to look elsewhere? So I think that's where we as the consumer have to start making the judgment calls and telling the companies what we want with our wallets.
I don't wonder about that too, though, because I used to buy Tom's of Maine, right? I used to buy their deodorant specifically because if I wear something with the aluminum stuff in it, then my lymph nodes will swell, under my arms, and that gets nasty, right? But I used to buy that because the ingredients were clean and that didn't have that reaction. Now, not long ago, a couple of years now, I bought some Toms. Well, actually, my mom bought it and had it shipped to Indonesia for me. And I had been using it. And then suddenly my lymph nodes started to swell. And there is nothing different on the packaging. So what happened? I can't even know because they're not printing it on the label.
It could be a fragrance change. It could be any number of things. Because it may have said, I don't know. I've never used their stuff, but I imagine that they'll just have to say, whatever the equivalent of natural flavors is in like the deodorant world. I don't even know if they put ingredients on those. I've never really looked. I've just used whatever is cheapest. So luckily I haven't had any of those issues, but
it hurts me. Hurts me fierce. Anyway, I've got this popped up here. Former Fat Girl asks us, for both members, if you could eat only one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be? Hey, excellent question. I'm going with beef. It's just nebulous because I'm going to keep it that way because I can eat a cow. Like I can eat that part, this part, that part, and I'm still within the same kind of covering.
I think I would go as round of a meal as I could. So it'd have to be like triple B&E, kind of like beef, butter, bacon, eggs, and have all of that in a meal. At least have like a perfectly cooked steak, different, eggs cooked because I like them cooked different ways depending on the day, and then bacon, obviously, and then butter. I think that would be something that I could sustain, but at least having beef or like the ability to switch out beef from steak to burger. I don't know. I think that's very complicated. I don't think there's anything that I would want to eat for the rest of my life because I even have things from time to time that I know I shouldn't have. Because I'm working on a video about like my own work, my own dealings with food addiction and stuff, and how I'm able to handle that with this way of eating. Um, but even with that, like handling it doesn't mean it goes away. So I don't know how catastrophic it would be for me if I was only allowed to have certain things for the rest of my life, but the other stuff were available. Does that make sense? And maybe I'm thinking too deep into the question.
Yeah, that's wow. Okay, the meat of the word. Excellent name there, dude. Chuck Eye Steak, his last meal on Earth. Awesome.
I
Wow.
don't even know if I've had. I think we get check eye steak from Costco sometimes. I just cube it up and sear it and cook it with some onions.
That sounds good. That sounds really good. Yeah. Nice. This has been fabulous. I knew it'd be fun. I have not done a live before. Well, I mean, I've done one live, but that was with Dave, and he did all the behind the scenes stuff. All I had to do was go, mm-hmm. It's been cool.
So I have another question. So you live in Indonesia. Are you but you're not an Indonesian native?
Nope. I'm
Where
from the
did you
US,
live
obviously.
before?
I mean, what?
Where did you live before?
Oh, Arkansas.
Arkansas. How did you end up in Indonesia?
Ooh, excellent question. So there's this thing called the internet, and I got onto it, and I made a friend online. And so she was taking a trip to Bali, and I'd never been out of town before. I mean, like far out of town like that. So I had some vacation time coming up. I said, all right, well, I'm gonna take some vacation time and go see the world. And I did. And I spent some time here in Indonesia and got to know friends. And I spent about a month here. And the first time I came here, and we talked to some local businesses and stuff to see if they could, use a hand or whatever I could do. And things weren't really working out. So just before I left, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And I got on plane. I go home, and I'm working that way. And I thought I'll just bring her to the United States. So I tried that route, and we found door after door just slamming in our faces. So that did not work out. And so I said, well, let's turn it the other direction. Let's see how it goes. Maybe this is the way of God. So we said, let's look into it. And she was going to a church at that time that they were just starting a church school there, and they had miraculously already worked out the paperwork for an English teacher. And they asked if I would like the job. And I said, sure, let's go for it. And so I moved back over here to take a teaching position as an English as a second language teacher for a budding church school. And that's how I ended up here.
Pretty amazing. It's weird what the internet can do, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to and say, my wife is still freaked out about that. Don't tell them we met online. Don't tell them we met online, because that's crazy stuff.
Yeah, I was growing up in the era of so my 17-year-old self was right in the thick of like the early AOL days. So America Online. So I was in that like when it went unlimited, like as it used to be paid by the hour, and when it went unlimited, I got online and I started meeting people all over the United States, having wonderful all-night conversations with people all over the world and everything. And then, it didn't slow down. I would meet people, it was like, don't meet people from the internet. We would go out of state and meet people. I mean, it probably wasn't the safest stuff to do, but I mean, we had a blast. Friends would, date people, and we got to know people, and I still have friendships to this day from people that I met back in like 96, 97. You know, like it's just crazy.
Wow. I really do find it fabulous. It still wows me every time I look back at how these things occurred. And I just have to say praise God anyway, because there's like, I couldn't have done this, and I know I couldn't have. So
Here I am sitting
I
talking
am.
to somebody who's in Indonesia, is what, 3,000 miles away? Maybe more, maybe 4,000. I don't know. I have no idea. And you're on the other side of the planet.
Thousands. It is thousands. Yeah, it's pretty far. And thank you, internet. That's awesome, right? Now, I have a connection with the Poco Moonshine family in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to have to wrap it up in about 5. Yeah.
Sure.
I hate to cut this short because this has been fabulous, but I have a
We can always do it again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to me the word here. Let's check that out. That's it, bro. God makes those connections, and boom, that is the case, sir. In fact, that has always been the case for me, because I don't fight for place. I don't look for place. I just move forward at the way of the Lord, and I've always been given place, and that's how it is. You know, you trust God, move forward, and trust God some more, and you move forward. Isn't that right, Dustin?
For sure. So what do you got coming up? Or you got videos you're working on? Anything like that?
Yeah, my computer recently died, and I had to replace it. So a lot of my stuff is on hold. That's why the live has been a really good option. I have five videos still in the pipe. This is just, wow.
Yeah,
I got one with
so I've been doing
5K.
everything with my GoPro for a long time, but my GoPro decided to stop working on battery, so I have to use it plugged in. So it limits what I can do with it. So I've got video ideas and some stuff that I need to record this weekend, and then I've been doing more lives as well. So I'll be live Sunday morning, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. For those early birds,
Yeah.
we just get together and talk and drink coffee. And then Chandra and I go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about our week and anything that pops up, any questions that people have.
Awesome. So where can people find you, just in case?
I am a Keto Simple at just about everywhere. So at Keto Simple, no space, on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I do have a Facebook, but that's Keto Indianapolis, because for some reason Keto Simple was taken, but I can't find it anywhere. So I don't know how it's taken, but I can't find it. But anyway, I've got a link tree that you can find. It's all linked with. If you find my Instagram, you can find a link tree. My YouTube's got my link tree. So all that's available for everybody to find all the things that I do.
So a little bit later on, I'll get into the about section on this video, and I'll post up the links on that.
Perfect.
Nice. So I'm also basically the same. I'm at Bold Carnivore in just about everything you can imagine, because that's I'm conspicuously open. I've been able to use Bold Carnivore all over the place.
It's very nice. It's nice to find a simple, easy handle that's not taken everywhere.
It's amazing. Yeah, I thought surely there must be. No, I'm going to type this into here, and it's going to say rejected. That's already taken. Yeah. Nope. Everywhere I've gone, I've been able to plaster my name on it. I go on the TikTok, which is amazing. I don't actually have anything TikToking yet, but it's there.
Over on TikTok, it's Keto Simple _ because I had Keto Simple, and then I had to do something to my phone and reboot my phone, like completely like redo my phone. And well, yeah, for some reason I could never get back into my TikTok, so I had to start a whole new one. It's Keto Simple _ So I don't do a lot there anyway. Usually if I'm putting something there, it's something you've already seen on YouTube or Instagram. So you're not missing anything over there if you don't go and check out TikTok. I know there's a lot of people who don't like TikTok. Yeah.
The only thing I don't like on TikTok is dancing nurses. They're trying to push medical practices that are questionable. Oh, that's sad.
Go Hungry Heath, you are the Hungry Heath to us. You are the
Yeah.
man.
I'll always know you as Hungry Heath. But then I met you as Hungry Heath, so I wouldn't know you otherwise.
Well, I appreciate this,
Man,
Matthew. I appreciate this. It's been awesome. I hope that we get a chance to talk again sometime soon. Thanks to everybody in the chat. You
absolutely.
guys are awesome.
We'll set this up again, man. I'm looking into developing a panel of friends to maybe come on and do lives like this. And I have a couple in mind, and I just have to work out scheduling and details because I have a couple of Dario is fantastic, the carnivore chef. I've got to get his video out, and you guys are going to love that one. It's really fun. Shout out to a few friends there. Okay, Dustin, I hate to go, but I must roll.
Have a good one. Thanks
All right.
again.
Awesome. Be bold, everybody.